The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a deep rumble. General Krix Vorthak walked slowly into the hall, his 4 arms hanging heavy at his sides. The Zentari warrior had seen many battles in his 300 years of life. But today, he felt more tired than he ever had before. The council chamber was huge. Representatives from dozens of alien species sat in floating chairs, arranged in a perfect circle. At the center stood Chancellor Delvon Mez, a tall being with gray skin and 6 eyes that never seemed to blink. His voice echoed through the chamber as he spoke. General Vorthak has requested this emergency session, the Chancellor said. He claims to have urgent information about the human species. Whispers filled the air. Many council members had barely heard of humans. They were a new species that had just been discovered 50 years ago. Their planet called Earth sat on the edge of galactic space, far from any important trade routes. Vorthak stepped forward into the center circle. His scales, once bright blue, had turned dull with age and stress. Scars covered his massive body from countless battles. When he spoke, his voice was deep and serious. "Honored Council," he began. "I come before you today with a warning. The humans must be left alone. They are not like the other species we have encountered." Several council members laughed. Ambassador Yelton from the Fex Empire spoke up. "General, these humans barely have space travel. Their weapons are primitive. What threat could they possibly pose to our great civilization?" Vorthak closed all 6 of his eyes for a moment. He remembered his first encounter with humans clearly. It had been during a border dispute near their solar system. The Zentari fleet had been conducting routine patrols when they found human ships where they should not have been. "Let me tell you what I have seen," Vorthak said. His voice grew stronger. 5 years ago, my fleet encountered human vessels near the Kepler system. They had only 3 ships. We had 12. Their technology was clearly inferior to ours. He paused and looked around the chamber. But when we demanded they surrender, they did something unexpected. Instead of running or giving up, they fought. Not just fought. They adapted. The memory was still clear in his mind. The human ships had started the battle using simple tactics. But as the fight continued, they began changing their methods. They used their ships in ways Vorthak had never seen before. One human vessel had rammed itself into a Zentari cruiser to save the other 2 ships. Their first ship was destroyed quickly, Vorthak continued. But the humans in the other 2 ships learned from watching their comrade die. They changed their attack patterns. They used debris from their destroyed ship as weapons. They did things that our tactical computers said were impossible. Chancellor Mez leaned forward. "Surely you exaggerate, General. One lucky battle does not make a species dangerous." Vorthak shook his head. "It was not luck, Chancellor. It was something else. Something I had never seen before in my long military career. The humans did not just fight to win. They fought to protect each other. When one ship was damaged, the others risked everything to save it." He walked closer to the Chancellor's platform. But that was not the most disturbing part. After the battle, we captured some human survivors. During questioning, they did not break. They did not beg for mercy. Instead, they asked about their fallen comrades. They wanted to know if we would treat the bodies with respect. The chamber grew quiet. This was not normal behavior for most species when faced with capture. "I have studied humans for 5 years since that encounter," Vorthak said. "I have watched them carefully. They are not the strongest species. They are not the fastest or the smartest. But they have something that makes them incredibly dangerous." Ambassador Yelton laughed again. "What could that possibly be?" "Unity," Vorthak answered simply. "When threatened, humans do not fight as individuals. They become something greater. They share knowledge instantly. They sacrifice themselves for strangers. They never give up." He turned to face the full council. I have seen human families on their colony worlds. When one member is hurt, the entire family fights to save them. When one colony is threatened, other colonies send help without being asked. This is not normal behavior for most species. Chancellor Mez stood up from his chair. General Vorthak, with respect, you seem to be letting sentiment cloud your judgment. The Galactic Council has decided that humans must follow our laws like all other species. They must pay taxes to the central government. They must accept our trade regulations. This is not negotiable. Vorthak felt his heart sink. Chancellor, I am telling you this as someone who has fought wars for 3 centuries. Humans will not submit quietly, and if you force them to fight, you will regret it. How can a species with such primitive technology pose any real threat? Asked Ambassador Corrin from the Hydral Confederation. Their fastest ships are slower than our cargo vessels. Because they learn, Vorthak said firmly. Every time you fight them, they become stronger. Every time you defeat them, they find new ways to fight back, and they never forget their enemies or their friends. He pulled out a data crystal and placed it on the central platform. This contains all my observations about human behavior, their battle tactics, their social structure, their response to threats. Please, study it carefully before you make your final decision. Chancellor Mez picked up the crystal and looked at it dismissively. Thank you, General. The Council will consider your input. However, our decision stands. The humans will comply with galactic law or face the consequences. Vorthak straightened to his full height. Then, I formally request to be relieved of my command. Chancellor, I will not lead troops against humans. It would be sending them to die for nothing. Gasps echoed through the chamber. No Zentari general had ever resigned from such a position of honor. Your resignation is accepted, Chancellor Mez said coldly. Admiral Zorith Kellen will replace you as head of the Enforcement Division. Vorthak turned to leave but stopped at the chamber doors. Chancellor, when this ends badly, and it will end badly, remember that you were warned. The humans have a saying that I learned during my studies. They say to never corner a wounded animal. You are about to corner an entire species that refuses to die quietly. The doors closed behind him with a final thud. In the chamber, the council members continued their discussion, but many of them felt uneasy. General Vorthak was known for his wisdom and experience. If he was this concerned about humans, perhaps they should listen. But Chancellor Mez had already made up his mind. The humans would submit to galactic authority like every other species before them. How much trouble could one primitive world really cause? Outside the chamber, Vorthak walked slowly through the corridors of the council building. He thought about the humans he had met during diplomatic missions. They were curious people who asked many questions. They wanted to learn about other species and share their own knowledge freely. Soon, those same humans would be fighting for their survival. And Vorthak knew in his heart that the galaxy was about to learn a very hard lesson about the cost of underestimating humanity. Fleet Admiral Zorith Kellen stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. Through the massive viewing window, he could see Earth hanging in space like a blue and white marble. Around him, 300 warships waited in perfect formation. It was the largest enforcement fleet ever assembled by the Galactic Council. Admiral, said his communications officer, the humans are requesting to speak with you. Kellen was a member of the Vorlak species. His people were known throughout the galaxy for their military excellence. His gray skin was covered in the ritual scars that marked him as a veteran of many campaigns. When he smiled, his sharp teeth gleamed under the bridge lights. Put them through, he ordered. The main screen flickered to life. A human appeared on the display. His uniform was simple compared to the elaborate dress of galactic military officers. I am President Min Jun Park of the United Earth Government, the human said. His voice was calm and steady. To whom am I speaking? I am Fleet Admiral Kellen, commander of the Galactic Enforcement Fleet, Kellen replied. President Park, you know why we are here. The Galactic Council has ordered your species to comply with standard integration protocols. You have 72 hours to accept these terms. President Park was quiet for a moment. Behind him, Kellen could see other humans moving around what appeared to be a command center. They looked busy, but not panicked. Admiral Kellen, President Park said, we have reviewed the terms you sent us. We cannot accept them. These protocols would make my people slaves in all but name. Kellen had expected this response. Most primitive species tried to negotiate at first. President Park, you must understand your situation. You are surrounded by the most powerful military force in galactic history. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your defenses cannot protect your world. Submit now, and your people will be treated well. The human leader shook his head. Admiral, my people have a saying. It is better to die standing than to live on your knees. We choose to remain free. Then you choose to die. Kellen said simply. You have 72 hours to reconsider. After that, we will begin orbital bombardment of your military facilities. The communication ended. Kellen turned to his tactical officer. Begin scanning their defenses. I want to know the location of every human military installation. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Park was meeting with his military commanders in an underground bunker beneath the capital city. The room was filled with screens showing the positions of enemy ships and the status of human defenses. Sir, said Admiral Sarah Chen, the head of Earth's defense forces, our long-range sensors show 300 alien warships in orbit. Each one is more powerful than our entire fleet combined. Admiral Chen was a small woman, but her eyes were hard as steel. She had fought in Earth's last major war 20 years ago and knew what it meant to face impossible odds. What are our options? President Park asked. General Lisa Rodriguez, the head of ground forces, spoke up. We've been preparing for this possibility since first contact 50 years ago. All civilian populations near military bases are being evacuated now. Our soldiers are ready to fight. How long can we hold out? The president asked. In direct combat? Maybe a few days, Admiral Chen answered honestly. But we're not planning to fight them directly. We have other strategies. She activated a holographic display that showed the solar system. Red dots marked the positions of alien ships. Blue dots showed human vessels and installations. The aliens expect us to fight like other species they've conquered, Chen explained. They think we'll group our ships together and try to meet them in open battle. We're not going to do that. Quote, President Park studied the display. What do you recommend? Guerrilla warfare, said General Rodriguez. We hit them where they don't expect it. We use their size against them. We make them afraid to split up their forces. Admiral Chen nodded. Our ships are smaller and faster. We can't win in a direct fight, but we can make them pay a heavy price for every victory. As they spoke, Captain Jin Woo-song was preparing his stealth ship for launch from a hidden base on the moon. He was one of Earth's best pilots, chosen for the most dangerous mission of the war. Song's ship was loaded with a special cargo. For months, human scientists had been studying captured alien technology. They had learned how to build devices that could interfere with alien communications and sensors. Captain Song, came the voice of Mission Control. You are cleared for launch. Remember, your job is to plant those devices on as many enemy ships as possible. Do not engage in direct combat. End quote. Understood, Song replied. His ship was so small that alien sensors would mistake it for space debris. If he could get close enough to attach the devices, human forces would be able to track enemy movements and disrupt their communications. Back on the alien flagship, Admiral Kellen was growing impatient. The humans had been silent for 2 days. His sensors showed massive movement on the planet's surface, but no sign of military buildup. "Admiral," his intelligence officer reported. "Human civilians appear to be evacuating major population centers, but we detect no increase in military activity." Kellen frowned. "What are they planning?" On the third day, exactly 72 hours after the ultimatum, Admiral Kellen received an unexpected message. But it was not from the human government. It was from someone he recognized but had not expected to hear from. "Admiral Kellen," said the familiar voice of General Vorthak, "I hope you will reconsider this course of action." Kellen was surprised to see the old Zentari general on his screen. "Vorthak? Where are you? I thought you had resigned in disgrace." "I am on a small station near the edge of this solar system," Vorthak replied. "I came here to observe, and to offer you some advice from someone who has fought humans before." "I do not need advice from a failed general," Kellen said angrily. Vorthak's expression remained calm. "Kellen, you are about to make the same mistake that many others have made. You think humans are just another primitive species that can be easily conquered. They are not." "Explain." "Humans do not think like other species," Vorthak said. "When you threaten them, they do not calculate odds or consider surrender. They become more dangerous, not less. And they will sacrifice anything to protect their freedom." Kellen laughed. "General, with respect, you have grown soft in your old age. Watch and learn how a real military commander handles primitives." The communication ended. Kellen turned to his weapons officer. "Begin bombardment of the human military installations. Show them the price of defying the Galactic Council." The first shots from the alien fleet lit up the space around Earth. Powerful energy beams struck human military bases on the planet's surface. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers as installations were destroyed. But something was wrong. The humans were not responding as expected. Their ships did not rush out to defend the planet. Their military did not surrender in the face of overwhelming firepower. Instead, President Park appeared on all communication channels throughout the galaxy. His image was broadcast to every world in galactic space. "My fellow beings," he said, his voice carrying to billions of listeners. "Today, the Galactic Council attacks Earth not because we have threatened anyone, but because we refuse to become slaves. We choose to fight for our freedom, no matter the cost." He paused, and his eyes seemed to look directly at every person watching. "To the other species who have been conquered by this council, know that resistance is possible. To the council members themselves, know that your time of easy conquest is over. Humanity stands free, and we will die free, if necessary." The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, on worlds where other species lived under galactic rule, people looked up at the stars and wondered if the humans could really stand against the mighty Council fleet. Commander Jake Thompson gripped the controls of his fighter ship as explosions lit up the space around him. The battle for Earth had been raging for 6 hours, and things were not going as anyone had expected. Thompson was leading a squadron of 12 human fighters against a formation of alien cruisers near Earth's moon. His ships were tiny compared to the massive enemy vessels, but they moved like angry wasps around the slower alien ships. "Tiger Squadron. This is Tiger 1. Thompson spoke into his radio. "Remember the plan. Hit them fast. Hit them hard. And get out before they can target us." "Copy that, Tiger 1, came the voice of his wingman, Lieutenant Park Sung-min. "I've got a lock on their engine section." The alien cruiser they were attacking was the size of a small city. Its weapons were powerful enough to destroy Thompson's entire squadron with a single shot. But the aliens had a problem. Their weapons were designed to fight other large ships, not small, fast targets that moved in unpredictable patterns. Thompson dove his ship under the cruiser's hull. The alien vessel fired at where he had been a second ago, missing completely. As he flew along the bottom of the ship, he released a series of small missiles. They were not powerful enough to seriously damage the cruiser, but they did not need to be. Each missile carried a special device created by human engineers. When they hit the alien ship, they did not explode. Instead, they attached themselves to the hull and began transmitting false signals to the alien sensors. "Direct hit," Thompson reported. "Package delivered." Across the battle zone, similar scenes were playing out. Human ships were not trying to destroy the alien fleet. Instead, they were confusing it. The devices they planted made alien sensors show false targets. They disrupted communications between enemy ships. They made the perfectly organized alien formation begin to fall apart. On the bridge of the alien flagship, Admiral Kellen was growing frustrated. His tactical display showed chaos. Ships were reporting targets that did not exist. Communications were breaking down. Some of his vessels were even firing on each other by mistake. "What is happening?" he demanded from his tactical officer. Sub-Admiral Yex Tolan, a competent officer from the Kethera species, looked confused. "Sir, the humans appear to be using some kind of electronic warfare. Our sensors are being jammed." Kellen had never encountered this problem before. In every previous conquest, the alien species had tried to fight the galactic fleet ship to ship. They had lost quickly because their technology was inferior. But humans were not fighting that way. "Sir," the communications officer reported, "I'm receiving reports from all over the fleet. The humans are not targeting our main weapons or engines. They seem to be attacking our sensor arrays and communication systems." At that moment, a group of human ships emerged from behind the moon. They were not the small fighters that had been harassing the fleet. These were larger vessels, moving in a tight formation directly toward the alien fleet. "Finally," Kellen said with relief. "They're going to fight properly. All ships, prepare to engage the human fleet." But the human ships did something unexpected. As the alien weapons powered up to fire, the human vessels suddenly split apart. What had looked like 6 large ships was actually dozens of smaller ones flying in close formation. The smaller human ships scattered in all directions. The alien weapons, already locked onto the formation's center, fired at empty space. Commander Elena Vasquez was leading one of those human squadrons. She had been a scientist before the war, studying alien technology and culture. Now, she was using that knowledge to save her world. "All ships, execute Pattern 7, she ordered. Her squadron began flying in a complex spiral pattern around an alien battleship. The aliens kept trying to target them, but every time they locked on, the humans changed direction. Vasquez had studied alien tactical manuals captured from previous battles. She knew how alien computers predicted enemy movements. By flying in patterns that violated those predictions, her ships became almost impossible to hit. But the real surprise came when the human ships began working together in ways the aliens had never seen. When one human vessel was damaged, 2 others immediately moved to protect it. When an alien ship targeted a human fighter, other human ships would attack the alien vessel from different angles, forcing it to choose between targets. Captain Kim Min-ho was piloting one of the escort ships when he saw Lieutenant Shaw's fighter get hit by alien fire. Shaw's ship was spinning out of control, heading toward a large piece of debris that would destroy it completely. Without hesitation, Min-ho flew his ship directly into the path of Shaw's fighter. He used his own vessel as a cushion, absorbing the impact. Both ships were damaged, but Shaw survived. "Shaw, this is Min-ho. Are you okay?" "I'm alive thanks to you," Shaw replied. "But my ship is dead. I can't maneuver." "Don't worry," came the voice of another pilot. "I'm coming to get you." Within minutes, a rescue ship arrived to pick up Shaw. The entire operation took place while under heavy alien fire. But every human ship in the area worked together to protect the rescue. Admiral Kellen watched this scene through his tactical display. He had never seen anything like it. In his experience, when ships were damaged in battle, their crews were left to die. Trying to rescue them only led to more losses. "Why are they doing this?" he asked his tactical officer. They're risking their entire fleet to save individual pilots. Sub-Admiral Tolan had no answer. Sir, it makes no tactical sense. They should be focusing on destroying our ships, not protecting their own. But what the aliens did not understand was that this behavior made the human fleet stronger, not weaker. Every pilot knew that if they were shot down, others would try to save them. This made them willing to take greater risks and fight harder. The battle continued for hours. Slowly, the aliens began to realize they were in trouble. Despite having superior technology and numbers, they were not winning. The humans were too unpredictable, too coordinated, and too determined. Dr. Elena Vasquez had moved from her fighter to a command ship where she could coordinate the electronic warfare efforts. She was watching the alien fleet on her screens when she noticed something important. "Admiral Chen," she called to the human fleet commander. "I'm seeing something interesting. The alien ships are starting to group together more tightly. They're afraid of being isolated." Admiral Chen studied the tactical display. "You're right. They're bunching up to protect each other from our small ship attacks. That gives us an opportunity," Vasquez said. "If they're all grouped together, we can hit them with something they won't expect." She explained her plan to Admiral Chen, who smiled grimly. "Do it." 20 minutes later, a single human ship approached the alien fleet. It was one of Earth's largest vessels, moving slowly and broadcasting surrender signals. "Admiral Kellen," the human captain said over the radio. "This is Captain Roberts of the Earth ship Defiance. Our fleet is defeated. We wish to surrender." Kellen was suspicious, but his scanners showed that the human ship's weapons were powered down. It appeared to be defenseless. "Approach slowly," Kellen ordered. "Any aggressive movement, and we will destroy you." The Defiance continued moving toward the alien fleet. When it was close enough, something remarkable happened. The ship's hull suddenly opened in dozens of places, and hundreds of small objects poured out. They were not missiles or bombs. They were human fighters that had been hidden inside the larger ship's hull. The aliens had never seen this tactic before. Suddenly, their tightly grouped formation was under attack from within. The battle turned into chaos. Human fighters swarmed through the alien fleet like angry insects. They were too close for the big alien weapons to target them safely. Many alien ships found themselves unable to fire without risking hitting their own vessels. Admiral Kellen realized he was facing something he had never encountered before. An enemy that refused to fight by the rules he understood. An enemy that valued each individual life, but was willing to sacrifice everything for freedom. "Sir," Sub-Admiral Tolan reported, his voice shaking. "We're receiving reports of alien casualties across the fleet. The humans are inside our formation. We cannot use our main weapons without hitting our own ships." For the first time in his military career, Admiral Kellen gave an order he never thought he would give. "All ships, pull back to a safe distance. We need time to regroup and develop new tactics." The mighty Galactic fleet, which had never retreated from any battle, began moving away from Earth. In the command bunkers on the planet's surface, human leaders watched in amazement as their much smaller fleet forced the aliens to withdraw. But Admiral Chen knew this was only the beginning. "They'll be back," she told her staff. "And next time, they'll be ready for our tricks." President Park nodded. "Then we'll have to come up with new ones." Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread quickly. For the first time in galactic history, a primitive species had forced the Council fleet to retreat. Other conquered worlds began to whisper about the humans who refused to surrender. General Maria Martinez crouched in the shadows of a destroyed alien supply depot on the planet Zerion. Around her, a mixed group of human soldiers and alien rebels prepared for their next mission. It had been 6 months since the first battle at Earth, and the war had spread across half the galaxy. Martinez was a small woman with graying hair and steady hands. She had volunteered to lead human special operations teams to other worlds, where oppressed species lived under galactic rule. Her mission was simple: teach others how to fight back. "Remember, she whispered to her team. We go in quiet, destroy their communication array, and get out. No unnecessary fighting. Beside her, a tall alien with blue skin nodded. His name was Vex, and he belonged to the Altarian species. His people had been conquered by the Galactic Council 50 years ago. They had given up hope until the humans arrived. General Martinez, Vex said quietly, my people are ready. We have learned your tactics well. Martinez smiled. When she had first arrived on Xerion, the local rebels had been fighting the same way for decades. They would attack galactic installations, get defeated, and then hide until the next opportunity. They never learned from their mistakes, and they never worked together effectively. The humans had changed that. They taught the aliens how to gather intelligence, how to coordinate attacks, and most importantly, how to support each other during missions. On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Jin Woo Song was leading a very different kind of operation. His ship, barely visible to sensors, drifted near a major galactic trade route. Hidden in the cargo bay were 50 human volunteers and twice as many alien freedom fighters. Song's mission was to intercept galactic supply ships and free the prisoners they carried. The Council had started arresting anyone suspected of supporting the rebellion. These prisoners were being transported to labor camps in the galactic core. Captain, his sensor officer reported, I have a Council transport ship approaching. Looks like they have about 300 prisoners aboard. Song studied the tactical display. The transport was escorted by 2 warships, but they were older vessels with limited firepower. More importantly, they would not expect an attack this far from any rebel world. All right, people, Song announced to his team. Remember, our job is to save the prisoners, not destroy the ships. We go in fast and quiet. The rescue operation went perfectly. Song's team disabled the transport's engines, while the alien fighters dealt with the escorts. Within 20 minutes, they had transferred all the prisoners to hidden ships that would take them to safe worlds. But something else happened during the rescue that surprised Song. Many of the freed prisoners were not from species currently in rebellion. They were ordinary citizens who had been arrested for simply talking about the human resistance. Captain, said one of the freed prisoners, an elderly being from the Centauran Federation. My grandson heard about the humans fighting for freedom. He made copies of President Park's speech and shared them with his friends. The Council police arrested our entire family. Song realized that human ideas were spreading faster than human weapons. The simple message that freedom was worth fighting for was inspiring people across the galaxy. Meanwhile, on the Council capital world of Zentari Prime, Chancellor Delvon Mez was meeting with his military commanders. The large conference room was filled with worried faces. For the first time in galactic history, the Council was losing control. Report, the Chancellor demanded. Admiral Kellen, who had returned from the failed Earth campaign, looked tired and defeated. Chancellor, we face rebellions on 47 worlds. The humans have somehow organized resistance movements across half our territory. How is this possible? The Chancellor asked. Humans are barely capable of interstellar travel. How can they be coordinating attacks across such distances? General Thex, a veteran Vorlak commander, spoke up. Sir, it's not just human coordination. The humans have taught other species how to fight effectively. Species that were peacefully conquered decades ago are now rising up. The Chancellor could not believe what he was hearing. What do you mean they taught them to fight? These species know how to fight. No, sir, Admiral Kellen corrected. They knew how to die gloriously. The humans taught them how to win. At that moment, an aide rushed into the room carrying an urgent message. Chancellor, I have a priority communication from General Vorthok. Everyone in the room was surprised. The old Zentari general had been silent since his resignation months ago. Put him through, the Chancellor ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing Vorthok sitting in what appeared to be a simple room on an unknown world. Behind him stood several figures that the Council members recognized as leaders of various rebel movements. Chancellor Mez, Vorthak said calmly, I am calling to inform you that I have accepted leadership of the Coalition of Free Worlds. The room erupted in angry voices. The coalition was what the rebels called their alliance. It included dozens of species that had been conquered by the Council over the past century. Vorthak, the Chancellor said angrily, you have committed treason against the galactic government. The old general shook his head. I have committed loyalty to justice, Chancellor. The humans showed me something I had forgotten during my years of serving the Council. They showed me what real honor looks like. He gestured to the figures behind him. These beings represent species that have lived under Council oppression for generations. The humans asked for nothing in return for their help, except the chance to fight alongside allies instead of alone. Admiral Kellen leaned forward. Vorthak, you know you cannot win. Even with human tactics, you do not have the ships or weapons to defeat the full Council fleet. Admiral, Vorthak replied, you still do not understand what you are fighting. This is not about ships or weapons. This is about an idea. The idea that all beings deserve to be free. He paused and looked directly at the Chancellor. That idea is spreading faster than your fleets can move. Every world you attack, every family you arrest, every peaceful protest you crush, only makes more people believe in human ideals. The truth of Vorthak's words was becoming clear across the galaxy. On world after world, species that had accepted Council rule for decades were beginning to question why they should obey distant masters who cared nothing for their welfare. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as Earth's chief science advisor, was studying reports from human teams operating throughout galactic space. What she found was remarkable. President Park, she reported during a secured communication, our people are not just teaching military tactics, they're sharing everything. Human medicine, human agriculture, human engineering. We're making life better for people who have been oppressed for generations. President Park was reviewing similar reports from his own office. What's the response been? Incredible, Vasquez replied. Species that barely knew humans existed 6 months ago are now willing to risk everything to fight alongside us. But it's more than that. They're starting to share knowledge with each other too. This was perhaps the most important change the humans had brought to the galaxy. Under Council rule, different species were kept separate and ignorant of each other's capabilities. The humans had encouraged cooperation and knowledge sharing between all rebel species. The results were dramatic. Altarian engineers worked with Centauran scientists to develop better weapons. Xerion miners shared their expertise with Taurian farmers to improve food production on rebel worlds. For the first time in galactic history, dozens of species were working together as equals. Back on Zentari Prime, the Council was discovering the cost of fighting an enemy that kept growing stronger. Economic production was falling as more worlds joined the rebellion. Trade routes were being disrupted by rebel attacks. Even loyal worlds were having trouble because they depended on trade with worlds that were now in rebellion. Chancellor, reported the economic minister, our tax revenues have fallen by 60%. We cannot maintain our military at current levels much longer. Worse yet, the Council military was facing something it had never encountered before. Soldiers from member species were beginning to defect to the rebellion. The humans had somehow convinced galactic soldiers that they were fighting on the wrong side. Captain Liu Wei-Ming had been captured during a raid on a Council supply base. Instead of being executed, he found himself in a prison camp with soldiers from dozens of different species. What he discovered there changed everything he thought he knew about the war. The prison guards were not cruel monsters. They were ordinary soldiers who had been told they were fighting dangerous terrorists. When Liu began talking with them, he realized they knew nothing about why the war had started or what the Council was really fighting for. Guard, Liu said to one young alien soldier, do you know why your government is fighting my people? The soldier, barely old enough to hold a weapon, looked confused. Because you attacked us, right? You humans want to conquer the galaxy. Liu shook his head. We never attacked anyone. We just refused to become slaves. All we wanted was to be left alone on our own world. Over the following days, Liu shared the real story of how the war had started. He explained how the Council had demanded that Earth submit to laws the humans had no voice in creating. He described how humans had only fought to defend themselves. The young guard listened carefully. When his duty shift ended, he went home to his family and asked questions. Why was the Council fighting people who only wanted freedom? Why were they arresting families for listening to human speeches about liberty? Within a week, the entire prison guard unit had joined the rebellion. They freed all the prisoners and brought their weapons and ships to the coalition forces. This scene was being repeated throughout Council territory. The human message of freedom was not just inspiring oppressed species. It was reaching into the Council military itself. General Martinez received a priority message while preparing for another mission on Zerion. It was from General Vorthak himself. General Martinez, the message said, I have a proposal for you. The Council's economic system is failing. Their military is falling apart. But they still have enough strength left to cause terrible destruction if we push them too far. I think it's time to offer them a way out that saves everyone's lives. Martinez understood what Vorthak was suggesting. After months of military victories, it might be time to try diplomacy. But would the humans be willing to negotiate with enemies who had tried to enslave them? The answer would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of the entire galaxy. Ambassador Chen Wei-Ming stepped off the shuttle onto the neutral space station where the peace talks would be held. The station sat in empty space between galactic territories, built specifically for these negotiations. Around him, diplomats from dozens of species walked through the corridors with hope and fear on their faces. Chen was an older man who had spent 30 years in human diplomatic service before the war began. His hair was white, and his hands showed the marks of age, but his mind was as sharp as ever. He carried with him the hopes of not just humanity, but all the species fighting for freedom. The main conference room was vast, designed to hold representatives from every species in the galaxy. As Chen entered, he saw Chancellor Del Von Mez sitting at the head of the Council delegation. The Chancellor looked tired and much older than when Chen had last seen him during pre-war negotiations. Across from the Council delegation sat General Vorthak, now representing the coalition of free worlds. The old Zentari warrior wore simple clothes instead of his military uniform, but he still commanded respect from everyone in the room. Ambassador Chen, Chancellor Mez said, as the human diplomat took his seat, I must admit I never expected to see you in this room under these circumstances. Chen nodded politely. Chancellor, 18 months ago, my people wanted nothing more than to be left alone on our world. We never wanted this war. And yet here we are, the Chancellor replied. Half the galaxy is in rebellion. Our economy is collapsing, and millions have died. Was your freedom worth all this destruction? End quote. Galaxy. Gainwell. End quote. Before Chen could answer, General Vorthak spoke up. Chancellor, with respect, the humans did not cause this war. They simply revealed what was already wrong with our system. The Chancellor turned to face his former general. Explain. Vorthak stood up slowly. Despite his age, his voice was strong and clear. For 200 years, the Galactic Council has ruled through fear and oppression. We conquered species and forced them to submit. We took their resources and gave nothing back. We kept them ignorant and divided so they could not resist. He gestured toward the coalition delegates. The humans showed these people that resistance was possible. But more importantly, they showed them that cooperation was better than domination. Ambassador Chen had spent weeks preparing for this moment. He knew that what happened in this room would determine the future of the galaxy. Chancellor, Chen said, we did not come here to punish the Council or to seek revenge. We came here to build something better. He activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red areas marked worlds, still under Council control. Blue areas showed coalition territory. Green areas showed worlds that had declared neutrality. Look at what has happened during this war, Chen continued. In coalition territory, different species are working together freely. They share technology and knowledge. They help each other solve problems. Trade between coalition worlds has increased by 300%. Chancellor Mez studied the display. What are you proposing? Chen touched a control, and the display changed. Now it showed a single galaxy with no red or blue areas. Instead, it was marked with symbols representing democratic governments on each world. We propose the end of the Galactic Council as it currently exists, Chen said. In its place, we want to create a galactic federation. Every species would govern itself on its own worlds. The Federation government would only handle trade regulations, mutual defense, and disputes between species. The room was silent. No one had expected such a radical proposal. You want us to give up our authority over member worlds? The Chancellor asked. We want you to recognize that you never had the right to rule other species without their consent, Chen replied firmly. The new federation would be governed by representatives elected by each species. No single group would have the power to dominate others. Admiral Kellen, who had been silent until now, spoke up. And what happens to those of us who served the old system? Are we to be executed as war criminals? General Vorthak answered before Chen could speak. Admiral, in the new federation, there will be a need for experienced military leaders, but they will serve to protect freedom, not to oppress others. You would trust former council officers to serve in a Federation military? Kellen asked in surprise. I trust that people can change. Vorthak replied. The humans taught me that redemption is possible for anyone willing to learn. Over the next several hours, the negotiators worked through the details of the proposed federation. Chen had brought with him detailed plans that human and coalition experts had developed over months of careful study. The new government would have three main parts. The Federation Council would handle relations between species and major galactic issues. Each species would elect representatives based on their population. The Federation Court would settle disputes and protect individual rights. The Federation Defense Force would protect member worlds from external threats and internal conflicts. What about worlds that do not want to join this federation? Asked Ambassador Korix from the Hydral Confederation. They would be free to remain independent, Chen answered. But they could not attack or threaten Federation members. Any world could join or leave the Federation at any time through a democratic vote of their own people. Chancellor Mez was quiet for a long time, studying the proposals. Finally, he spoke. These terms are very generous. Considering that you are winning the war, why are you not demanding our complete surrender? Chen smiled sadly. Chancellor, we have learned something important during this war. Victory means nothing if it is built on the suffering of others. The humans do not want to become the new oppressors. We want to create a system where no one needs to be oppressed. The talks continued for 3 days. Many council delegates were angry about giving up their power. Some coalition representatives wanted harsher terms for their former oppressors. But slowly, agreements were reached. The key moment came when Chancellor Mez stood up on the final day of negotiations. I have spent my entire life believing that the strong should rule the weak, he said. I thought order could only come through control. The humans have shown me that I was wrong. He looked around the room at delegates from dozens of species. I hereby dissolve the Galactic Council and accept the formation of the Galactic Federation under the terms we have negotiated. The room erupted in cheers and applause. Species that had been enemies for generations embraced each other. Some delegates were crying with relief and joy. But Chen knew the real work was just beginning. It would take years to build the new federation and heal the wounds caused by centuries of oppression. 6 months later, Chen stood in the newly built Federation capital on a neutral world chosen by vote of all member species. The building was designed to represent equality, with no species given more prominent space than others. Today was the inauguration of the first Federation president. To everyone's surprise, the person elected was not human. It was General Vorthak, who had been chosen by representatives from across the galaxy. In his inaugural speech, Vorthak said words that would be remembered for generations. Today we begin a new chapter in galactic history, not as conquerors and conquered, but as partners in building a better future. The humans taught us that true strength comes not from dominating others, but from lifting others up. He paused and looked out at the diverse crowd of beings listening to his words. Let this be the last time any species stands alone against oppression. From this day forward, an attack on one free world is an attack on all free worlds. In the audience, Ambassador Chen sat with President Park, who had come to witness this historic moment. The old Korean diplomat felt tears in his eyes as he watched former enemies working together to build something unprecedented. Do you think it will work? President Park asked quietly. Chen nodded. It won't be easy. There will be problems and conflicts. But yes, I think it will work, because it's built on the idea that all beings deserve freedom and dignity. 5 years later, the Galactic Federation had grown to include 237 member species. Trade flourished between worlds. Scientific discoveries were shared freely. Wars between member species became almost impossible because of the Federation's mediation systems. Humans were no longer seen as dangerous primitives or as saviors. They were simply one species among many, contributing their unique talents to the galactic community. Human ideas about democracy and individual rights had spread, but so had ideas from other species about art, science, and philosophy. General Martinez, now retired from the military, worked as a teacher on a Federation Academy world. She taught young beings from dozens of species about the importance of cooperation and peaceful conflict resolution. Captain Song had become commander of the Federation Defense Force's Exploration Division. He led mixed crews of humans and aliens on missions to discover new worlds and make contact with previously unknown species. Dr. Vasquez directed the Federation's Science Council, where researchers from hundreds of different species worked together on projects that would have been impossible for any single world to accomplish alone. And on Earth, President Park's successor looked up at the stars and smiled. Humanity had set out to protect their own freedom and had ended up freeing an entire galaxy. Not through conquest or domination, but by showing others that a better way was possible. In the end, the aliens had been right to fear humanity, but not because humans were great warriors or brilliant strategists. They were right to fear humanity because humans carried an idea that could not be stopped once it began to spread. The idea that all beings, no matter how small or weak, deserved to be free. And that idea, once planted, had grown until it changed everything.